This is a podcast by WellHouse Church, where we talk about what it's like to be a Christian Monday through Saturday, to live as a person of faith in a culture against faith.
So let's talk about learning new skills, which is one of the most the most searched New Year's
one of the
resolutions?
top 10 most common
One of the top 10 most common is learning a new skill.
or hobby.
Learning a new skill or
hobby. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So, out of curiosity, I doubt you've ever set a New Year's resolution to learn a new skill or a new hobby.
No.
Never?
No.
Okay. Me either.
But as we talked about it, I'm kind of against resolutions most years.
Me too. I do find myself learning new skills every year, though.
Well, of course.
Right. I mean, it's a natural thing that you do as a human.
Well,
if you're trying to grow and learn.
Yeah. Right? So that's the deal. If you're trying to pursue growth and development, then you're going to naturally learn
new things. Yeah.
And that's the other thing I would say is, like, if you are a learner, if you are a person who seeks to learn, and gain formation from learning, you're going to learn skills alongside just like arbitrary knowledge.
Right. You know, it's funny to me to think back, you know, we're in 2022 now, and we're getting pretty far removed from 2020, right? But lots of people in quarantine, while not connected to like a resolution, dedicated themselves to learning new skills.
Correct.
Because they had more time on their hands.
Correct.
I wonder, I don't actually know the answer to this, but I wonder what the top 5 new skills that people wanted to learn were. I know languages is probably up there.
Yeah, most people want to learn a new language. There are some people who want to learn an activity, like a sport or a hobby, tennis, golf, something like that, bowling, some kind of social element,
right? Something that connects you to other people in a way.
Other people want to learn a hobby like wine tasting or photography or
mixology.
Yeah, some kind of skill in that realm. Once again, something that comes with an element of a social aspect or community. And then, something like photography or videography is just a skill that brings enjoyment to people. So it's usually in those kind of veins. I don't know.
Oh, learning new instruments, I bet, is up there too.
So learning an instrument is one of them that's up there. Two most common, I'm sure you can guess, guitar and piano.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yep.
Would not surprise me one bit.
So, yeah, they're all new skills. They're all in that vein. And, last year, a few months ago, I read a book written by Questlove, titled The Creative Quest. And if you don't know who Questlove is a DJ, like world-renowned DJ, music historian, drummer, co-founder of the Roots band that plays on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Just a amazing creative.
Yeah. Oh, and he's now on a new YouTube exclusive show done by Balvenie.
Oh.
The Scottish distillery.
Yep.
Where he's on there talking with other creatives while drinking scotch. And they're just having a conversation.
Dang.
It's really cool. The first episode is with Michael Che, and it was really good.
Dang.
It was really good.
I'm going to go watch that.
You should.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go watch that. That stuff like that is a lot of the inspiration for his book. He has lots of just sit-down meetings with creatives, and he's just like a sponge of information. Any kind of creative he can get in a room, he wants to ask them questions and just absorb all of their knowledge.
That's awesome.
But anyways, in Creative Quest, one of the arguments that Questlove makes is that everyone is a creative. The question is how they develop it and what medium they choose to create through.
Yeah.
And at first, I really didn't agree with him.
That not everybody was a creative.
Yep. I was like, no, not true. Not everybody's a creative. There are some people that are just not wired that way.
I think there are some people that are more creative than others.
So
and it's just because that creative piece of themselves, I think, has been fostered a little bit more.
Yeah. So I was there. Questlove is not there.
No.
Questlove thinks every single person is equally creative. The question is simply their medium and involvement in growing their creativity.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying, that piece, that their creativity had not been, that piece of their creativity had not been fostered the way.
Oh, no, but that's what I'm saying. And maybe I'm not communicating correctly, but he would not say what you're saying. What he would say is that those that didn't, quote unquote, foster or grow it, it has shown up in a way where society would now not call it creativity, even though it is. For instance, one of his examples is someone who can create massive Excel sheets.
I understand.
Not a traditional creative, but very much so
still
doing creative work.
Still creating things in a way.
Correct.
Yeah, I get it.
If that premise is true, which after reading the book, I now, even though I started out not agreeing with him, I now 1,000% agree with him, that every person is a creative. The question is just their medium. And so with that, if every person is a creative, creativity, literally, if you could give like word association for creativity, what would it be?
I mean, when you say, are you asking specifically me?
Yeah, I have an answer, but I'm just curious.
My brain goes to color.
Color?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, in what way? Why?
I don't know. I hear the word creative or creativity, and I just think color, brightness.
Interesting.
Because if you think about it, creativity is the brightness of life. Right? It is the thing that creates the color in the world.
See, that's not the metaphor that I would use for creativity. I definitely see how you get there.
That's just where my brain goes.
Yeah,
right?
I definitely see how you get there. Mine goes to new. Creativity is the eternal ascent for new.
I could see that, yeah.
And so if we agree with Questlove's premise that everyone is a creative, then everyone is always seeking new. It's just a question of in what way. New business opportunities, new ways to be more productive, new ways of communicating something, new ways of telling stories, new ways of writing music, new ways of painting, new brushstroke paths, new is endless. If you go from what you have, and the creative journey is creating something new, that is literal creation.
Creating is newness.
Is newness. Then that means everyone has the capacity to learn and do new things all the time, which actually means if you were ever gonna make a New Year's resolution, I actually think this is probably the best one you could make.
Yeah. Learning something new.
Yeah, literally. Learning something new. Doing something new, creating something new, getting involved in something new, experiencing life in a new way that you haven't previously.
Yeah, and so let's talk about this for a second. Actually, if you don't mind me going on a little bit of a thing here.
Go ahead.
So science has kind of proven, and medicine has proven that one of the best ways to like stave off like Alzheimer's, and diseases like that is to learn new skills. And see new things, do new things, right? because what happens is your brain kind of falls in this rut.
It's rhythmic.
Yeah, it falls in this rut, and it's not forced to do new things, and so it's just it's kind of like driving a car or not driving a car often enough.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It kind of doesn't get its gears moving the way that it should, and
Yep.
so it doesn't function at the highest capacity that it could.
Right.
Whereas if you're learning new things, doing new things, seeing new things, you're forcing your brain to work.
Yep.
And process new information. So, yeah, I think I would agree. If you are going to make a New Year's resolution, learning a new skill just for the functionality of like making your brain work better.
Yeah.
Solely just based on that, yeah, do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, 1,000%. And I think, the other thing, the spiritual element of this kind of idea of newness is rampant.
oh, it's everywhere.
I mean, there's so much language in the New Testament about being a new creation. And that's not to say that you, the person, are somehow bad or faulty because you need to be newly created. But it is to say that we can look around and see that the world is broken and fallen, and the effects of sin are definitely present.
Yep.
And therefore, they've had their effect on us. I mean, as we can see, our scars are proof that we need to be recreated. We need to be new creations.
As does the earth we're sitting on.
Correct. Everything needs to be recreated and needs to be a new creation.
Needs to be restored.
Correct. And that's why Jesus at the end of the book, at the end of Revelation, literally is sitting on the throne, and he says, "See, I am making all things new." The element there is, it's just screaming at you throughout the entire piece of literature. New covenant language. Yeah. Just rampant everywhere.
So we can't have this conversation about newness and not address something, though.
What?
The statement by Barney Stinson that new is always better.
Oh, okay. Yes. Let's have this conversation.
Okay. I think Ted proves, if you have not watched this episode of How I Met Your Mother, you should, just to be up to date on this conversation.
Yep.
I think Ted proves Barney wrong, that new is not always better.
Why? With the Uncle Jim's grape scotch?
Yeah. Versus the 35-year Glenn McKenna.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I would.
I don't know. New does not necessarily mean better. New does mean new, right? Which new is always good. Well, no, not even that. Because Nazism was new at one point.
Well, no, Nazism was fascism, which was not new.
Well, okay,
the atomic bomb was new.
But sure.
Yeah.
But even fascism at some level had to be new at one point.
At one point, it was
like,
new. Yeah.
Bad things can start as newness.
True.
So new does not always mean better.
Agreed. New is not a category of better or worse. New is an independent category that means new.
Right.
Of which sometimes new can be good.
Right.
And sometimes new can be bad.
Can be very bad. Yeah.
Me personally, and not to be a jerk or get too political here, but it was new that Donald Trump was president. That was a very, very bad thing. That was not a good thing.
And arguably, it is new that Biden is president, and not great things are happening right now either.
It's not catastrophically falling apart like it was headed with Trump. So I'm much more comfortable with what's happening with Biden right now. But
still, new does not mean better.
New does not inherently or automatically mean better. But new definitely has moments where it's better.
It can be, for sure.
And I think overall, I'm looking back. There are definitely moments where we can look back and go, okay, there were new things introduced into the world that were bad. And as my good friend Ben Blackwell says, this was the problem with modernity. Modernity was the eternal pursuit of new for the new objective truth, and that was going to lead us into the golden years. And then World War II happened, and we realized that wasn't the case. All it did was make us kill people better. And so we can look back through history and go, yeah, there are moments where new is just terrible and catastrophic. But then there are also moments where we can look back and go, hey, new is great.
Yeah. Agreed.
New gave us Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, he literally calls himself the new covenant.
Right.
New
can be a good thing.
Yeah, and I'm debating within myself, and I didn't know this conversation was going to go this way, or I would have tried to be more prepared, but I'm racking my brain throughout church history, and I almost want to say that majority of the time, new is better. But definitely not all of the time. For instance, because this is where my mind goes. If you're gonna put new into the category of all the things that are new, new music.
Sure.
We get new music regularly. New
it's
films.
Not always good.
Okay, but more times than not, it's good to somebody because good's also subjective. There are
Also
very
true.
few things that are unilaterally just
Very true.
unequivocally bad.
Right.
Music, film, art, poetry. So much. My mind's clearly on creative stuff, but so much of the newness that we get, majority of the time, is good, beneficial, and advantageous. The way that new affects the human mind.
Right.
In a way, you could say that we all experience new every day because every day is a new day.
Sure.
And in that, the experience of that day, literally the experience of the sunlight, has massive effects on people's mental health.
Sure.
So I think overall, at least where I would be, I think new is most of the time better.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree. I think, again, I don't want to miss this because I do feel like there are traditions within Christianity that the old just needs to be abolished, right? Let's just forget everything that we know about tradition and just do this new thing.
Yeah, we call them non-denominational.
I wasn't going to go there, but
that's what we call them.
That's kind of what's happening there. Everything that we know about tradition just needs to go away. That I don't think is helpful. I think that's taking
abolishing all of the old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, some of the old needs to go to make room for the good new.
Yeah, was literally just having this conversation with somebody on Instagram. Yes.
Interesting. Yes. Pieces of the old do need to go to make room for the good new. Or the bad old needs to go to make room for the good new.
Correct.
But if you throw away all of the old, that means you have to create all new, which means you're going to get some bad new.
Oh,
you know what I'm trying to say?
Forever. Yeah, forever. And that's the goal. That's the perpetual goal, is to sift through the new that we're creating to weed out the bad new that comes with it.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. 1,000%. And I think for a New Year's resolution conversation,
Right.
That's absolutely the case because
That's where I was going. Yeah.
Most people, if I had to guess, they're learning a new skill in order to create time and space to replace something that was no longer life-giving.
Exactly.
And that's the other thing that I will say about this conversation of new is when new arrives on scene, it can be good for a season up until a point where we realize it's no longer good. And for a conversation about New Year's resolution, like I would urge you to think through that, to think about that, because if you set out and you go, okay, I'm going to learn something new, and you get into it and you like, let's say you decide you're going to learn, like, so I've been learning Spanish on Duolingo. Let's say you're going to venture in, and I got a notification that Duolingo also now teaches you endangered languages like Navajo. So let's say somebody's like, hey, I'm going to learn Navajo. Great. Okay, cool. More power to you. Not sure. I mean, you better speak all the other like modern languages if you're learning Navajo, I think. But let's say you're going to venture out and do Navajo, and you're like, okay, I'm going to learn this new thing.
But what if you're like a Native American like scholar?
I kind of feel like you would have had to do that in your PhD.
I mean, yeah.
So just the average person, okay? So you go and you're going to learn Navajo. And you go down that road, and it's great in the early stages. And it's great for you. You're learning new. You got a cool party trick. You're doing the stuff. But then there comes a point where the stresses of life, the time it takes, the lack of it being actually advantageous to you in your everyday life and in the world, when those effects start to bear down, is when you have to ask yourself, like, is the new thing still beneficial and advantageous to me now when it's no longer new? And that's not to say we shouldn't finish anything we start, but it is to say that, like, some things that are new are good when we start them, but they don't end up being good for long.
It doesn't mean that they are always good things.
Correct. They're not eternally good.